Welcome back to Alien Agenda. In this episode, we're diving deep into the universe of one of the most prolific sci-fi minds of our time. With over 10 million words and 36 novels under his belt, Mark Tierno blends hard science, cyberpunk grit, and epic fantasy into unforgettable world. Here's Colonel G.
All right. Hi, folks. It's Colonel Gene again with Alien Agenda. Today, we are really fortunate to be able to talk with Mark Tierno, one of the most prolific sci-fi writers of our time. His writing weaves the narrative into transcends the ordinary. His work is a beacon for those who seek to lose themselves in their own imagination. Mark was born and grew up in Monrovia, California, near Los Angeles, where he lives today. His formal education includes a BS in physics from Cal Poly, BS in math, an MS in physics from Cal State, and Mark also is certified in lasers and electro-optics. You can understand when you read some of his books that are very high-tech. Why? Because Mark is high-tech. Mark is also a yoga practitioner for more than 30 years, and for 20 of those years, he was a certified instructor. Author of 36 novels that contain 10 million words and 550 characters. On one day, Mark has written as much as 12,000 words. His writing is both traditional sci-fi genre, but he also writes in cyberpunk, which deals with future urban societies dominated by computers. And finally, Mark is a ghostwriter that helps other writers bring their ideas to print. Mark, welcome today to Alien Agenda.
I'm glad to be here.
Mark, please tell us about yourself, a little more yourself, your books, especially your latest one, Maldene.
Well, obviously, as you can tell from the right up there, I get dangerous when I get bored. That's much how that started. Like you said, I've averaged 12,000 words a day. The most I've done one day, because it was a really good chapter, was well over 15,000 words, which apparently frightens other writers. But if having fun, then you can work miracles. Maldene is a series of 13 books, which I think is called a triskaidekalogy. It alone totals 5.2 million. Yeah, and I like to combine genres. Like Maldene, for instance, starts off epic fantasy, but later on in the story, I throw in some sci-fi elements, which is the opposite of my Cyberdawn series, which starts off sort of like Cyberdawn, cyberpunk, but I throw in some dark fantasy stuff.
Sounds like it's a little like Harry Potter on steroids.
Harry Potter with Lord of the Rings and a bit of Star Wars.
Tell me, what was the first sci-fi book that you ever purchased with your own money?
Man, I have to go way back on that one because I've been reading since I was a tyke. The first ones wouldn't have been with my own money. Like back in grammar school, they used to have the tab books and lucky books where you got to order the books, and the parents, of course, were paying for them. And they drop them off at the school, and the teacher would call you out and give you the books. I'd be the guy with the armload of books, like about a dozen each, and getting outlooks from everybody. First one I purchased with my own money, that would be lost to the depths of history. It might have been Childhood's End.
Okay.
That would have been, that was like in fifth grade or something.
What do you think, if you were to pick sci-fi book that you think is the most important or the best book, which would you pick?
You do realize I've probably read a couple thousand books, right?
Yep. I want to make it hard on you.
Oh yeah. I got like the books I've read in just in a room all by itself. The most important, I guess, would be pertaining to what got me into my own style and writing and everything. And that would be, I think, in part, the Lord of the Rings series, because
Okay.
that got me thinking in terms of that. And I always took a little bit of everything out of everything I noted it back in the back and let it squirrel away for a few decades before I came up with my own style. But I'd say, and I think every fantasy author around would have to say, like it or not, Lord of the Rings did influence you.
Okay. Let me ask you a question. How do you think aliens dealt with the issue of the enormous distance that we now know exists in our universe. How are they able to move those distances?
Well, that actually gets into a paper I wrote, which finally got published in a journal. The whole physics side of me, I actually do have a sequence of theories that gets into the origins of what makes up particles, and from that, basically the different fields and stuff. So without getting into that too much, but the simplest way of saying it, in this universe, the speed of light has a set limit. That limit would change with each universe. If you picture each universe as like a different field overlaying the other in the same three-dimensional realm, like house current. If you stick your finger in a socket here, it's 60 hertz, you're going to get jolted. But go over to Europe, it's 50 hertz, and you won't feel it. The same thing on reality. It has all different layers. We feel ours because we're at at a given field density. And each field density has its own corresponding speed of light, among other things. So you just make a craft that can slip into a different reality, a different field density, where light goes a lot faster. Right. And so use that one to sort of jump over temporarily and then bounce back into this reality.
Do you think the wormhole has any concept, has any validity?
The wormhole, I suspect, like a number of things that come out of Einstein. He has the math that works, but as to what's really going on, I think, are off. Like for instance, that is due to geometry, but there's a reason why the equations work, and that goes into my other paper. A wormhole, I suspect, is because of that. If you take away the gravity just being curved space and all that, you also take away a wormhole. But if the math works, you go back to my explanation of your slipping to a different reality, and that's not exactly a wormhole, but the math might end up supporting that same thing, just with a different interpretation.
So, from your earlier answer, I suspect then you believe that there may be multiple dimensions existing at the same time and that it's possible to move between those dimensions. Is that correct?
Yes, like I said, each would have a different field density layer, so they're all existing here. It's just like that 50 versus the 60 hertz. We can't feel it, but they are they're coexisting things from zero to infinity. Some of them may be more inhabitable than others.
What do you think, when we finally get to the point where we can no longer just conjecture, but there's absolute proof that we have direct alien contact? What do you think that contact is most likely to, what kind of approach do you think it's going to be? Is it going to be adversary? Is it going to be one of curiosity, like the way we look at beehives? Or do you think maybe we've evolved to a point where maybe extraterrestrial life that is way ahead of us reasons that maybe they could have some form of communications? What do you think is the most likely scenario when we actually make contact with extraterrestrials?
I suspect that the reason we haven't seen any overt, contact from the aliens right now is because they're looking at us, waiting for the right time, going, okay, all these local primitives have to get their act together. We make one wrong move, they'll either us or destroy each other, saying, I want to control the alien power or what have you. So they have to be just as careful as if we were going to a tribe in, say, the Amazon jungle. They have to be careful that they don't destroy the society or influence it too much or overwhelm our worldview with their advanced tech. They come along with all this super advanced stuff that's going to have one or two reactions. One of those reactions might be people just becoming overwhelmed and giving up, or some might just and worship and don't want that. So they have to be, the time is right, and then choose exactly how to go about it based on what the circumstances are.
Well, one of the things that I found when I did some of my research is the number of sightings that are been reported that are over nuclear facilities, not necessarily just weapons facilities, but also nuclear power plants. Do you think there's any correlation? Is there a reason for that?
I suspect, yes, a couple reasons. One, of course, they'd rather we not up like that, so you got to monitor the weapons. The other, There was I heard from somebody once, I think Dr. Richard Miller or something, and he happened to tell me that apparently when we hit the nuclear and detonated the bomb, that got the aliens' attention. Something about there's another pulse that goes out detected that actually messes up the equipment. And so yeah, that got their attention. They're going, okay, we got to monitor these guys. They do that wrong. They're not just going to endanger us. Some of their stuff may actually affect us. So I think
Yeah,
it has to do with that.
I believe you're correct. I have come to this conclusion. Mark, how do you react when you share research with others? What kind of reaction do you get, and how do you react to them?
I get a lot of drop jaws. On my stories, for instance, I mentioned, how much I've written, and I flash a book in front of them, because they aren't short. I got a bunch of books that are like 300,000 words plus. I got one that's 575,000 words. And usually, yeah, there's a lot of drop jaws, a lot of, how did you do that? And then when I get into the story, because I can really wax enthusiastic doing that. Um, I get like entranced looks, a couple times, almost like I'm telling a story to a kid or something, that same sort of reaction. When I begin explaining about some of my theories in details, and there's a select few I do on that one. If they're understanding what I'm saying, that's when I really get the jaws dropping and the interests going up. And it gets summed up by something a couple of different friends of mine said. They went, "Why aren't you rich and famous yet?" And I have a problem with this real world thing.
Well, is your objective to become rich and famous, or are you just writing because you like to write?
Bit of both, because with the money would come, of course, hey, I pay off the mortgage, and hey, I can now support my of eating and writing more books. Because it's this cycle. You get more money, you don't have to worry about the ghostwriting, so you can write more of your books. You send them out there, people appreciate it. You get more money, you write more books, and it's like a habit you're supporting. Must write more. Because I still have other books I've written. I still have a ton more ideas in my head. I outlined another 10-book series, but I got to get to the point where I don't have to worry about, funding or anything, so I can relax and get and
Yeah, you and I are in agreement there. I love to write, but it wouldn't be a nice idea to have another Harry Potter.
yeah.
Let me ask you, what do you say to people who are just naysayers and say, this is all a bunch of malarkey. There's nothing out there. We're alone. We're the alpha universe. What do you say to these people?
Probability is against them. Right now, there's like, say, 100 trillion stars in this galaxy, and each star has, say, call it a dozen planets around it. There is, call it innumerable galaxies throughout the known universe. We're talking trillions upon trillions, each of which has the same number of stars in each galaxy and planets or whatever. So you're talking whole worlds just in the observable universe. You go beyond that and until you realize infinity comes into play. And even if you're saying, oh, gee, there's like only a 1 in a million chance that a world might have life. Okay, 1 trillion divided by a million means, okay, you just said this galaxy has about 1 million chances at life. The odds are against them. There will be life there. It's just a matter of how much, who's where, how they communicate back and forth. Assuming we're it in all this infinity is utter nonsense.
Well, that's an interesting point, Mark. Um, I'm getting ready Friday to release another one of my books, um, and uh, are they out there? And I took a look and tried to look at a really comprehensive smattering of some of the evidence that's out there in the book, some of the pictures from the Webb and the Hubble telescopes. And the reason that I included that, and I explain in my book, is that I wanted the reader to get some idea of the enormity and the complexity and power of the universe. Because what I really am trying to get them to ask themselves is, with all of that, do you really think that we are the only intelligent life in that enormity? I mean, I have been astounded at some of the pictures from some of the satellites and the probes that we've sent out, especially of our sun, which is right now in a very active period. And there's some concern that there may be a once in a century solar flare that could create some real havoc here on Earth. But I agree with you. I think statistically, to say we are the only intelligent life is not only hubris on our part, but I think statistically is just not true. Let me ask you. Um, I assume you've listened to some of my podcasts, obviously. What do you think? I mean, do you have any? Again, I try to them so that people understand. I try not to make them too long, and I've tried to go a full breadth of all kinds of things. What's your thought on my podcast, Alien Agenda?
Alas, I haven't had opportunity to listen to them yet. I've been too busy, basically working.
Oh,
Uh,
okay.
yeah, I've bring in the money, and I'll get 4 clients at once or nothing for 6 months, and nothing. And currently I'm closing the four at once
Why do you enjoy being an author?
because I can create. I found early on, I have this mind that likes to invent things. Um, I can create basically, sort of play God. I can commit all the things I'm going to be imagining anyway, and then put it into some hopefully artistically worded novels, and see how much enjoyment I can get out of that from myself and from others. And probably the best critic is myself, because having grown up with a historic lack of self-confidence, that makes for fantastic editing skills. As you're reading through it and you're going, could tweak this one more time. Yeah, just a little more. And by the time you end up having something you can show to people, they're going, "Oh my God, you can write!" And I surprised a friend of mine once. The first time I dared to show my manuscripts, it was the first Maldene book, and around he calls me and says, "Looks pretty good." Chapter he calls me, "You didn't tell me I could write." Now he's read all my books like about a dozen times each, and he's become my beta reader and feedback guy.
Do you get a lot of feedback? I mean, do you get a lot of people that get a hold of you, or write comments that you can read about what you've written?
Well, I do have a few reviews on the self-published books I have out there, and the ones whose hands I can get it into, the reviews out of 5 stars, like 4 and 5 stars, and with appropriate comments. Some of the more ones go into what they were just overwhelmed with and everything else. Had one of the more useful ones. There's a guy I bumped into back on MySpace, Charles Saunders, and he's a writer. He's about 10 years older than me. And at the time, I hadn't gotten it self-published yet, but he it turns out was an author slash copywriter, seen both ends of the artistic thing. And
Mhm.
and he read this, and it looks pretty good. When, hey, do you mind doing a review? And he said, okay, but I'll have to be honest. And he pointed out a few typos and stuff. And then but in general, he loved it. And I asked him, it's like, I can't pay you, but could you, give me, like, some feedback point on my errors and stuff. And he sent back a copy that was noted up in red. And I sent him the next book. By book 5, he became a fanboy. This is a guy I'd never met. He lives like Maine and everything else. He'd been in the business for 40 years, and I'd be hearing these enthusiastic things like, "Okay, what happens next? No, don't tell me how to read it." And, "Oh my God, this is the most, glorious, I've ever seen." And I'm like, and hearing this coming out of a guy that had seen everything in the business, remind myself of that, and give me a nice thrill.
What do you think is the likely probability of we're in the process of developing these new quantum computers, and I've been reading about their uh, capabilities or estimated capabilities, and I've been watching some of the things that are being done with AI. How do you think that may have an impact, for instance, on people like you and I? Do you think that those systems will ever sort of rally around or challenge us? If they ever get to the point where they combine the AI and have the power of a quantum computer, that they could actually begin to develop some original thought. Do you think that could be a danger to us?
Well, compared to the state of AI, it looks useful for article writers and paper writers, but they have no imagination of their own. And I've gotten to the point where I can spot it. Like a friend sent me over some things. Like, here's something you wrote, and I'm reading through it, and I'm going, "This came out of AI, didn't it?" And he went, "How do you know? I do this for." And somebody else who posted, "Hey, could you have a look at my book and give some feedback?" And I went through it and annotated it, and then off the cuff said, "You had to write this, didn't you?" There and if you've seen AI artwork, it's good and trash is the best way of describing it. I don't feel threatened about it, because at the worst, if when someday becomes where AI actually has an imagination and you can ask an AI, okay, write an original book, and that's your only prompt, and actually does something, I still won't feel threatened, because that would put them up there with the same competition against real people. And against real authors, all evidence seems to indicate I'm better than like most anybody out there. So I wouldn't feel the competition. It's like I said, for article writers, but I don't feel threatened.
What are your next series of books? Are you just going to continue with your current the current series, the Maldene? Are you gonna get something, or
Well, currently, to put in perspective, I have Maldene 13 books and a 2-book prequel. Cyberdawn, which was the most paranoid story you're ever going to read, that's 5 books. Land of the Hive, that I did with somebody, that's 7 books and a spin-off. My Inspector Flatfoot series and some other things. Those are what I've done. I have a few ideas, which I had some time last year and finally got around to outlining one of the things I've been accumulating notes for. So I have a rather thorough outline for a 10-book series. Could be 11, depending how it goes. That one has a number of original concepts on that one, and that would probably, when I get the opportunity and funding, that the next one that I do. And after that, sort of a vague 2-page treatment I did on an idea. A friend of mine got tired of all the um, fad of grinning vampires and werewolves with perfect abs and all that stuff, and he's going, "Mark, come up with something new." And so I did, and combined it with a what if I'd always had, a what if the empire never fell. So that also be something else I get around to. So I got the 10 books. How's a world where there's no humans? You have humanoids, but no humans. And water is dangerous. It causes things to explode or reacts rather violently with things. And I just started from that and ended up with a notebook full of different notes and a 10-book outline. But yeah, that would be my next one.
Mark, what was the name of the journal you mentioned earlier?
The Archives of Nuclear Energy Science and Technology, abbreviated ANIST.
There's a never-ending stream of ideas coming from you.
I don't quit. I just need, the opportunity fund. I always tell people I could keep 3 mainstream publishers busy for a full decade each just with what I finished.
It sounds great. Well, Mark, it really has been a pleasure to with you again. So our audience may not know you and I think it was in 2020 when my wife and I had dinner with you out in California. I
Close
don't know
to
if
that,
you
I think
remember.
14, actually.
Maybe it was 2019. It was right before COVID.
Yeah.
I know that. And but you're certainly a very interesting person. I wish you best luck.
Thank
And
you.
I thank you for coming on Alien today and being interviewed. You
It's
take
been
care of
great being
yourself,
here.
and we'll
Thank
be
you.
looking for your next series, okay?
Okay.
Have a great day.
Maldene is a sweeping, epic blending fantasy and science fiction, where wizards, warriors, and alien visitors unite against Miro, a timeless, God-feared villain shrouded in mystery. Spanning continents, cultures, and dimensions, the story explores a richly detailed world, from storm-lashed equators to ancient cities and magical whirlpools. Called The Hobbit Meets the Odyssey, Maldene offers a journey through time, space, and legend unlike any other. You may visit Mark Tierno's website at www.maldene.com. Ever encountered a UFO? We want to hear your story. Email Deborah Wallace at pcm.agency to join us on the air.